Welcome to SEC Football Live. My name is Braden Gall. He is Michael Bratton. Get into the comments, folks, because we had one of the most boring days Saturday of college football in the SEC. Not, of course, if you are a Missouri fan, if you are an Auburn fan, if you are an LSU fan, if you are a Georgia fan, if you are an Alabama fan, if you're a South Carolina fan, you had a great Saturday, but it was pretty boring. Pretty boring football. And then Sunday morning happened, Michael.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. So we have a whole lot of shit to get to today on the show. Two, not one, but two coaching searches on the program. We will discuss what you need to know about those coaching searches, which is number one, that no one knows a damn thing. So if you're reading it on the internet or listening to it in this show as well, not one person is reporting a single bit of information about your actual team. We'll get to that. What does a coaching search firm actually do? All kinds of stuff. So candidates that we would call all kinds of great stuff. How good of a job? Hello, pup. How good of a job is Mississippi State? You and I actually had a fairly lengthy conversation, Michael, about Mississippi State in the coaching hierarchy. I think it was last week on the show. Jayden Daniels Heisman Trophy campaign. Some information you need to know about that. We do have a couple of really big football games coming up this weekend. We've got the SEC championship game set, Georgia and Alabama, just as you predicted, Michael, back at SEC Media Days. Does another coach in the SEC need to be concerned? And congrats to Auburn on getting bowl eligible. Mike, how surprised were you Sunday morning when the news started to break?
Who let the dogs out?
Well, Lane Kiffins was running all over the field. That didn't help him.
I hear that dog likes to bite people.
It's not the first time. It's not
my
the first
dog
time
doesn't bite. At least
it's not the first time an animal on Athens Sanford Stadium field tried to bite a football player. Right? Like, wasn't that the Georgia Bulldog tried to bite an Auburn football player in the game?
That's true.
About 15 years ago, old Ugga. One of the old Uggas tried to bite an Auburn player. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I do that.
What was the question, Jim? Is it Jimbo? Surprised at Jimbo?
No, just both of them. Because I have a theory on why the Mississippi State fire happened when it happened. So I'm just curious. Just how surprised were you that it actually took place? That we actually got to the point where $75 million, which is a massive record by 3x. Gus Malzahn, the highest on record right now, $21 million. So this is 3x that. And then, of course, we can get to Arnett not even finishing a full season. So just how surprised were you that both of them happened and when they happened?
I mean, I was surprised they didn't fire Jimbo about a year ago, maybe two. That was surprising because he's awful. So, I mean, I thought the loser of that game, I thought they'd be fired on Saturday night. So why Monday for Zach Arnett? I don't know. I'm kind of curious to hear what you have to say on that, but he was clearly in over his head. So yeah, I was calling it loser leaves town game. So I'm not surprised by either of them.
I'm not, the reports of the board meeting in Texas on Thursday to kind of make a bit of a decision. I want to remind folks of the Les Miles season before the season before he got fired. And there's a thing called the old dead cat bounce. And I think Texas A&M didn't want the dead cat bounce, which is he wins 3 games to finish the season and somehow rallies the fan base and the boosters decide, okay, we're not going to spend this amount of money, and he comes back next year. And that's what happened to Les Miles. Remember, they carried him off the field after the win there, and he got to keep his job for an extra year, which was, a mistake for LSU to keep him that long. So the old dead cat bounce is what I think they were afraid of. And let's be very clear about one thing. Ross Bjork did not make this decision. Okay. This was not made by the Texas A&M athletic director. He can say everything he wants to in a press conference, but it wasn't his decision.
He said they were living life in the slow lane with Jimbo, which that's pretty accurate on the field, at least watching Jimbo's offense. You know what?
I do appreciate a man who drives between 75 and 80 on the interstate and left lane. That is appropriate interstate behavior. So I appreciate that, especially in Texas where...
You know who I feel bad about is, and hopefully I get his name right. I mean, that's how much coverage he's gotten, but Jalen Henderson, I believe is his name, the Texas A&M quarterback that... I mean, he just had an incredible performance. I think I read he was 4th string at Fresno last year. He comes in here for A&M. I get it, Mississippi State, that's not a great opponent by any means, but, I mean, no one's even talking about that and what a performance he had. And it made me think, if only A&M had a mobile quarterback this entire time. I mean, Max Johnson's like, who knows what his stat. Clearly, he couldn't even go. He's so banged up. So I'm not blaming him. But and Wigman is a very good player, so I'm not calling him out. But it's almost like there's an advantage to playing a mobile quarterback. If only Jimbo would have stuck with that after Kellen Mond.
I was going to say his best season was when he had his best quarterback play, and at that time was the most mobile quarterback he probably had. There was another mobile quarterback at Texas A&M that we're going to talk about in a minute when we talk about Heisman Trophy winners, but we'll get to that. I just want to point a couple of things that I think people need to know. Search firms are actually a really, really good thing. They don't make decisions. They are essentially like, imagine the FBI in like college football coaching form. Like you as an athletic director, Ross Bjork or Zach Selman at Mississippi State, cannot be on the ground in every single community in college football. They just can't. They can't be understanding the ins and outs of every single offensive and defensive coordinator, rising star coach. It's just physically impossible. And so what a search firm is they're just infantry. A search firm is just people on the ground, boots on the ground, getting information, background information, sometimes off the record information about coaches, about their scheme, about how they recruit, about how they work. So if you see a story about a search firm, don't lose your shit over a search firm. It's actually very helpful to provide help to an athletic director to be on the ground. So that's number one. Also, no reporting. There's nobody that knows a single thing about either of these two coaching searches right now. So when I rattle off names, and I've talked to some people in the business, they don't have any clue yet. None of these guys have any clue about who they're going to hire, who they're going to interview. They're going to move quickly, but nobody has any actual information. We're all just sort of saying, here's who we think would be good for Texas A&M and Mississippi State. And there is no chance that Ross Bjork made this decision. This was made by the people with all the money that paid for the $77, $76, $75 million. So just some things to keep in mind when looking at Texas A&M. Now, Mississippi State, I'm curious what you think. I mean, Zach Selman was a new athletic director. Zach Arnett was given the job as an interim in theory, and then kind of given a year to try it out in a terrible, tragic situation. This one, I do think Zach Selman just said, look, to the people in charge, we've learned as much as we need to learn. And oh, by the way, Texas A&M's getting all the headlines right now. We have a $9 million buyout. It's a lot less. I think they timed it out. As soon as they saw the Jimbo Fisher news, they started to move. And as soon as they saw the Jimbo Fisher news, they knew they could hide it underneath Jimbo Fisher. And I think that's what they did.
Why wouldn't they have done it on Sunday then?
I think they were waiting for A&M to dominate. They haven't had their press conference, right? Until
Sunday evening.
When was Ross Bjork's official press conference?
Sunday evening.
Yeah, I think that's what you do. You let that news cycle play out, and then you kind of slide your news in there on Monday. And everyone's still joking on Twitter about $76 million, $75 million. So I think that's the plan there. So Harrison, huge fan of the Tyler Childers hat. Thank you. He's one of the best songwriters of our generation. I want to get to who you want to see, or do you want to ask me who I want to see, since you don't ever watch any college football outside of the SEC?
Yeah, I'm not big on just throwing names out because I don't know. So you go for it.
Well, who do you want to know? What I think we can discuss is who do we think would work? Who do we think would be good, and who do we think could work at those positions? Another important lesson is you just never know what makes a guy tick.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't, and each individual coach could be, Willie Fritz could be desperate for the Mississippi State job, or he could not want that shit at all. You just don't know what makes a guy tick.
Yeah. Well, I think at Mississippi State you have to kind of think outside the box, and that's why, people are saying, like, I've seen two people here in the comments already. Cliff Kingsbury, like he's not going to Mississippi State.
He's also not very good.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he might be. Who knows?
He's not very good. He's not a good coach. He's never been a good coach. I don't know why people think he's going to be a good coach at a very difficult job, Mississippi State, and a very pressure-packed, high-profile, win a national championship job at Texas A&M. He couldn't do it in any other place. Why would he be good now? I don't understand that.
Well,
when has he been a good coach?
Couldn't you have said the same thing about Lane Kiffin? And then, I mean, he got better.
He has gotten better, but he was a good coach before. Like the 2009 Tennessee team is the best coached Tennessee team since Josh Heupel took over. Between Phil Fulmer and Josh Heupel, the best coaching job in Knoxville was 2009. Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if Mississippi State could get him, I'd bend over backwards for Cliff Kingsbury. I just that
That's
doesn't make
terrible. That's
that
terrible.
does. I don't think that's
That's terrible.
living in reality. I think what you have to do is like I'm saying, you have to think outside the box. And maybe I don't know, but there's something I've always heard. There's something with Jamie Chadwell in his background that
Yeah.
people won't touch him, and I don't have one clue what that is. No
Well,
one's ever.
he's been on NCAA violations like 3 times. So
Well, who cares? I mean, the
well,
NCAA is going to go
sure.
under in like 2 years. Like,
Here's what I would say about Jamie. Here's what I can say about Jamie Chadwell, because he's been a winner at Coastal Carolina and now at Liberty. Imagine, like, back in college, you start dating, you date one girl, and then you kind of break up, and then like you maybe start dating one of her friends in the same circle. Like, that girl knows everything there is to know about you. You know what I mean? South Carolina, like, knows everything there is to know about Jamie Chadwell. The University of South Carolina knows everything there is to know about Jamie Chadwell, and he was not even considered for the job when they hired Shane Beamer.
Yeah, they also have one of the worst ADs in the SEC, so I don't know.
I'm just telling you. I think there's a lot of value in just using logic and thinking through the team that knows you the closest doesn't want to touch you. There's something there.
Well, that's why he's perfect for Mississippi State, because people don't want to touch him, but he's a great coach and he's got a fun offense, and he'll score points, and he's a nightmare to prepare for. Like that. That's where Mississippi State needs to be, or Willie Fritz, because as soon as you say that, somebody says, "You know how old that bastard is?" Like that's perfect, because he ain't going to Arkansas or Auburn or Tennessee because people say he's too old. Well, I don't care how old he is. Can he coach? Is he a winner? Has everywhere he gone? Can he develop the program and make it stronger than when he inherited? Then that's all I need to hear if I'm Mississippi State. He can make us better. Let's hire him. He's a hell of a coach. He's been doing it for X a number of years. That's who I'd want if I'm Mississippi State.
On the surface, I do think Chadwell would work well at Mississippi State. I think in a vacuum, that's true. Is there a reason that he ends up at working for Ian McCall, one of the shadiest motherfuckers in all of college football, running one of the shadiest football universities in all of college football? Yes, I think there's a reason. I think there's a reason South Carolina has him fully vetted and chose not to even interview him for the South Carolina job. I think there's reasons all that stuff has happened. I don't have specifics on that. Jenna, Braden, say you're that guy. No, look, when you're in college, you just kind of all date each other for a while, right? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think when you're in college, everybody kind of is looking at everybody else the whole time, right? Isn't that? It's sort of like offensive coordinators during the transfer portal time of the year,
I don't even know what you're talking about, but I'm just trying to figure out.
Jenna was making fun of me for dating two friends.
No, I got you. I'm just rattling my brain about. I mean, we want a winner, right? We want fun football. We want to win.
I think there are some people that, like, again, the only name that I am making a call to first and foremost, if I'm Ross Bjork at Texas A&M, the only name that guarantees them a national championship, the only name, there's only one. He's a guaranteed national champion, and you would have to shower with steel wool before going to church every Sunday morning, and that's Urban Meyer. So the question is, Auburn decided it's fine with Hugh Freeze. I would not be. If you want to decide that you're fine with Urban Meyer, that's your decision as a school. You can do it. If you want to put the women of your community at risk, go for it. I'm not into that thing. I'm not into that. So I think there's varying degrees of like weird and odd, and then there's like creepy, and then there's like NCAA stuff, which is, right now NCAA stuff is not that big of a deal. So the only name that can win Texas A&M a national championship guaranteed is Urban Meyer, and I'm not sure he cares to go into that fishbowl. I don't know if what they say in interviews, Liquid Flames, is irrelevant to me right now because it's too early in the process. No one's actually had a conversation, and Jimmy Sexton basically controls all of this. So
I don't think that should be your criteria, though, and that may sound bad, but I don't think you sit here and say, okay, who can win us a national championship? I mean, I think you can win a national championship at A&M, but we got to win 10 games first. You know what I mean? Like, who's a coach that could come in here and more often than not, we can win 10 games? Who is that guy? That's who I want. I don't want you hire Urban, you're right. Maybe he does win it all, but I think history shows it's going to be awful ending, and we're going to be worse off than we are today. So he's like the ultimate.
But you got that ring.
Ultimate boomer, but there's no guarantee of that either.
Oh yeah, there is.
But,
He won a national title.
But there's almost a guarantee that it will end horribly. So
I agree. He's a piece of shit.
I don't think I would.
In my opinion.
That's not where I'm going. I would go. I think you almost have to do like the opposite of Texas right now, because the way I look at Sark, and I know they're doing well, but to me that's like style. You know what I mean? And I want substance.
I don't know. That defensive line for Texas is fucking awesome.
I want a coach.
There's a lot of substance with Sark.
That is respected in high school ranks in Texas. You know, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm.
Okay, so you've made a few criteria here, which I think are all very valid. But like, who's guaranteed to be on that list? There is nobody. So there are names that could eventually fill that role. We just don't know. Like Bob Stoops got the job at Oklahoma after being a DC at Florida. You don't know how great he's going to be. You know, like, people just don't know when you're a first-time head coach or when you elevate yourself to a place like College Station, which if you talk to coaches, how they view College Station is, holy smokes, a whole lot of resources. You can win big there, but man, it's total chaos. And so that was the problem with Texas. And by all accounts, what you're saying about Steve Sarkisian is what he has done. He has eliminated the chaos behind the scenes with the boosters.
How you like them apples?
That's nice. Missouri fans is what you can say to that, since one of us on the pod said that Missouri was clearly the better football team last week. I think if you do something like LSU did and go get a proven elite level coach, then I think you can say, yeah, this guy can come in and win 10 games at Texas A&M. Now, do I think there's another Brian Kelly out there? I don't know. I'm not sure. James Franklin is not a great coach. Penn State fans will tell you they'd be fine with him leaving. Jim Harbaugh is a very good coach.
He can go back to Vanderbilt, I bet.
But he wants to go to the NFL. Ryan Day is an elite coach. Lincoln Riley's pretty close to an elite coach, but has some sensitivity issues, let's call them, that may not work well in a tiny little town like College Station.
What about Johnny Manziel?
For what?
Head coach.
Get the fuck out of here.
Hype man, hype sideline hype man or something.
I think the Mississippi State
approach.
I think so you're completely full of shit. Okay, I think Mississippi State's a far more normal search. I think you look at the normal ranks of coaches. I think Jon Sumrall at Troy is going to be a very good coach and be an SEC head coach one day. I think Cade Womack at South Alabama is going to be a very good coach and going to be an SEC coach one day. I think Willie Fritz, if anybody wants to hire him at that age from Tulane, could be a coach at any place that he kind of wants to go at some point in the near future. I think there are guys who have far less questions and are sort of on a traditional path towards being a head coach in the SEC that I think you can just, like, if I'm Zach Selman, these are the names on my list that I'm calling. And if Texas A&M is far more complicated than that. You need a guy with upside who can recruit against Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and Brian Kelly. That is not the expectation at Mississippi State.
That's true. Okay. I don't disagree with anything. That was brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, how about I like the fact that they're firing these guys. I mean, it's so weird that the cycles get sped up and everything, but everybody's pointing towards the transfer portal. I don't know that is the chief concern of Mississippi State, but I think it should be of A&M because of the talent you can attract. And you also don't want your roster being although those guys can jump in. But I think, and I have no knowledge of this, but I would imagine, because I know some players, they're kind of stuck where they're at because of NIL. And I would imagine that is probably the case with some of these college players in College Station, because you're not seeing the big name guys jump into the portal yet. But I mean, again, I have no idea. But I
think you're on the right track with the structure of what's going on. Like, you can't make that money if you leave campus. Is the whole point of how they're structured. So I'm not worried about losing guys necessarily. But if let's say we get a new coach at A&M before the portal opens, and we need this safety, we need this corner. We have to have a coach in place to kind of
to get those guys. Essentially, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know if so if you're talking about guys like Mike Elko at Duke, who knows College Station, who's a very, very good coach. Lance Leipold at Kansas is a very, very good coach. Chris Klieman at Kansas State is a very, very good coach. Kalen DeBoer at Washington is a very good coach, who ironically, Kalen DeBoer's offensive coordinator said no to Jimbo Fisher this summer when Jimbo Fisher tried to hire him. Now look at what Washington's doing on offense. Look at what Texas A&M did on offense. I think what's interesting about those names is you just don't know if they can recruit the same guys. But that was the exact same question about Josh Heupel. And Josh Heupel struggled to recruit at the AAC level at UCF. And guess what fixed the problem? The collective, NIL. Mm-hmm. That has helped Josh Heupel recruit at a level that he had never recruited before. And answered the only big question about Josh Heupel was the recruiting. So maybe that makes it more palatable or smarter to hire a guy like Mike Elko or Lance Leipold or Chris Klieman or Matt Campbell at Iowa State and Jeff Traylor was mentioned in the comments. I forgot who mentioned it. I apologize. But Jeff Traylor is a rising star at UTSA. He is going to get a job at some point. But that's a big, big jump. That's a big jump. And no, Dan Campbell's not leaving the NFL for a college game.
Well, not only that, Braden, but I like the idea of it, but
yeah,
not just Dan Campbell, but any NFL coach, unless he pulls a Petrino and leaves in the middle of the year,
nobody's doing it.
The timeline just it doesn't work anymore. Because what are we just talking about? We're talking about the portal. We're talking about recruiting. These guys can't even show up till
February.
January, February. Late. I mean, you're 2 years behind if you do that. So it's just not feasible.
No, I agree. I think Kiffin's a name you call. I mean, I don't know if A&M fans would love that. I don't think Kiffin would take the job, but I think, from what I understand, but I think that's what I think you call him. I think you call Josh Heupel. I don't think there's a problem calling him, but I don't think Heupel has any interest in leaving. So I think, Dan Mullen for Mississippi State should be a very real possibility. Dan Mullen is a very good.
What about Dan Mullen at Texas A&M? I've not heard that anywhere.
I mentioned I cut it out of my clip that I posted on YouTube actually because I was like I just can't do it. I can't.
Why not?
I can't connect the dots because he failed so miserably recruiting that I don't know. But if you're looking
wasn't that essentially before NIL?
Kind of, yeah.
Because here's the thing: I've heard some people spin it like this. Chip Kelly, same deal. He doesn't want to recruit, and I'm not saying you can just abandon recruiting. And I don't think that's quite fair to say that to Dan Mullen. I mean, I get it. That was always my criticism of him as well. But
he's an elite offensive mind, though. Let's be very clear. He doesn't get the credit he deserves.
He developed more NFL players at Mississippi State than anyone ever. So how can he not be? He can't be awful at recruiting if he's getting all these players and they're turning them into NFL players. But he's not elite. I get that. But at A&M, I don't know that you have to be because he can kind of half-ass it, hire some good recruiters. And because of their NIL, that could be the difference.
Yes, it can close. The NIL can absolutely close the gap on a guy whose weakness would be recruiting in the SEC, which is different than recruiting anywhere else. It just is.
What about Drink?
Is.
I threw that out on a radio show just now where they asked any other coaching firings and I said, well, Pittman obviously perhaps, but one to watch I think is Drink. Capitalizing on this big season, making a jump and I have no clue if he wants to go to A&M.
I wouldn't be that sounds like an SEC thing to happen.
Right. Or just
sounds like very SEC.
What if Jim Harbaugh leaves and then they pick I have no idea if they'd be remotely interested in Drink, but if a job like that called him, you have to pick up the phone, I would think.
Oh, and I think he would take it. If it's Michigan or A&M, I think Eli Drinkwitz is out. I think Eli Drinkwitz is a very good coach, and I think this Missouri team deserves to be celebrated. I don't think he views it, if he keeps winning, that Missouri is his ultimate destination. Now, I don't know. I think he's at the place where he needs to stay, and I don't think he realizes that to some degree. But I think, to me, and just to put into perspective how good Dan Mullen was because I think your argument about, and I agree with Andrew there, Heupel has too much cash and goodwill to leave Tennessee. I totally agree. I don't think he's interested at all. Mike McDaniel to Alabama when Saban retires. Hey, what they're doing with backfields at Miami is super fun to watch. To your point about Mullen, it's the Mark Stoops question at Florida State. It's the same. Like, can a guy who's clearly a very good coach, but his primary thing that he's good at is sort of scheme and development and culture, which all sound like good things at A&M.
Stoops is good at scheming?
But, well, the defenses are very good, and the defensive players are very well coached. That's why they keep getting drafted and put into the NFL. But to your point about Dan Mullen at Mississippi State, you're not a great recruiter if you're developing 3 stars. It just makes you a really good developer. Mississippi State's had 9 or 10 win seasons all time. 4 of them were Dan Mullen. They've only had 3 double-digit win seasons ever, and only one this century, and only 2 since World War II. So expectations should be much, much lower at Mississippi State. Mark Stoops will not leave Kentucky. I agree. I am pointing out the argument for why folks did not like him at Florida State, for example, despite his ties and how good he's been at Kentucky, is that he cannot recruit at that level, or maybe we just don't know. And I think that's the question about Dan Mullen. There's only one name.
I don't know about you, Braden, but I truly appreciate when these commenters let you know how wrong you are.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. Well, like I said, I'm married, man. It's a regular thing. I think there is kind of one. I think you actually said this name, and I've mentioned it before as well, but I don't think that he's going to leave, and that's Jeff Brom at Louisville. I think that's one name that is like an automatic, I think, would be successful, checks every box at Texas A&M. I don't think
you know how much he makes? I just did Google, so I don't know if this is true or not. You know how much he makes? It's something ridiculous. It's like $4 million a year.
Oh, low. You mean low? Yeah. Well, that's his dream. That's the beloved alma mater and the dream job. So I don't think he just got it.
Said we'll give you 12 a year.
At Louisville would give him like 8, and he would stay. I know the Louisville program quite well. I don't think he would leave. Here's the name that I think there's only one name that kind of checks every one of these boxes. Really good recruiter in the SEC, has a history and tie to the area, is a proven head coaching commodity. Is showing that he can develop talent and win, but also recruit high-level talent. And again, deep ties to the SEC and to the area with recruiting.
Can I guess? I think I know where you're going.
Yep.
And you're dead wrong.
Well, I don't think he's going to take the job because I don't think he's going to leave. I think he likes where he is. But
Gus Malzahn.
No, that's the name I would hire at Mississippi State. I would hire Gus Malzahn at Mississippi State.
I don't think they can get him.
It's a way better job than UCF. Better job. Oh, by a country mile.
Mississippi State?
By a.
You know how many students they got down there? Aren't they Power 5 now?
There is not a Power 5 anymore.
Power whatever?
The SEC and the Big Ten are the most. Gus Malzahn to Arkansas and to Mississippi State. Either one. That is the name I'm going after hardcore for so many reasons, but just also he's good. The name that I was talking about, who's recruited at a high level in the SEC, who's got experience in the area, knows the states, knows the recruiting base for Texas A&M, is also a head coach, is also winning at a high level and developing players and proven, in my opinion, in a short period of time that he's pretty good.
Oh, God. See, this one I think is just totally unrealistic. I figured out who you're talking about now.
Okay, who is it?
You're going to say Dan Lanning.
I am. And I don't think he's going to leave. I don't think he wants the job.
I believe he's got like some, and I could be wrong because I don't follow Oregon, but I just heard this in passing. I think if he leaves Oregon, he owes them $40 million.
Well, as we've learned, that don't mean shit to Texas A&M.
So you think
the coach doesn't pay that?
Pay $70 million.
The coach doesn't pay.
Turn around and pay Oregon $40 million, and then turn around and give Dan Lanning $100 million.
It obviously doesn't matter.
Staff 20 like that. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't matter. $75 million to fire a guy. You've eliminated money from the equation.
That's not even how the buyout works, Braden. They're giving
it's going to negotiate.
They give them like $20 million in 90 days, and then they have 7 years to give them the rest of the 70 whatever.
Yeah,
That's different than turning around and giving Oregon $40 million.
Well, I think you need to double check that, but
just so you can negotiate.
I think it's half that, but I think you need to check that. The point is, and as I said at the beginning, if you were listening, I don't think he wants to leave, but that is the type of name I am looking at. That's the type of name that I would go after if I'm Texas A&M. I think you can shoot for higher. Jeff Traylor could be a really good coach. Jon Sumrall, Jamie Chadwell. These guys could be very good coaches. I think you need to shoot for a larger, in a bigger pond than that if I'm Texas A&M. So that's all. Dan Lanning, Gus Malzahn, and I guess, do you think Arkansas is in this boat in a week or two? I mean, obviously, they play FIU this weekend. They're going to destroy FIU, but they'll play Missouri in the season finale. If they get destroyed by Missouri, which is likely, considering Missouri is one of the greatest teams in the history of college football, I don't know. You think Arkansas is open?
I just checked. It's $20 million, Braden. $20 million.
Gotcha. So half of what you said. Like I said,
you have to pay Oregon just to talk to the guy.
Okay.
Who? I don't. I'm trying.
Money
to think
is clearly not an issue for Texas A&M.
I'm just sitting here trying to think who's worth $20 million to
there is no number. There is no. See, here's what you're wrong. Here's what you're wrong about.
That's the list.
No, here's what you're wrong. I mean, obviously, with their track record behind them, judging it, yes. All that matters is if you find your guy. You don't have hindsight, man. You don't know what this is going to look like in 3 years, but you have to find your guy. And if you find your guy, Texas A&M has proven that there is no dollar figure that matters. And that's all that matters. You go get your guy. And again, Sean says this. Lanning has already said, as of last night, that he isn't leaving. Every coach says that in the middle of a playoff run.
Wrong again, Braden.
So nothing. This is must-lie season for everybody. Everyone's lying. The ADs are lying. The reporters don't know shit. The coaches are lying. Everybody's lying. It's all lies. So Dan Lanning strikes me as a future SEC coach at some point. The question is, do you want it to be A&M, or do you think there's another place you'd rather go? And I don't know what's going to be available.
Have you been up there, Braden? It's beautiful.
It is.
They got that Nike money.
Quite amazing.
They got I think all the drugs are legal up there.
Very much so.
Why would he leave? That's crazy talk.
Ayahuasca? I don't think he's going to go, but that's the type. I'm saying the type of name that I would look at. I don't think Lincoln Riley could hack it. I think Lincoln Riley would end up in the fetal position, rocking back and forth in the corner of a dark room. I don't think Lincoln Riley can hack what it would take to win at Texas A&M. You need someone with a strong backbone.
I mean, if you're going to do all that, why not just go? Why not just hire Glenn Schumann or something? Because he's not been a head coach, I guess. I
totally unproven, yeah.
I would never hire a guy that's not been a head coach.
I know. That's why I agree with you. That's why I like Jeff Traylor, for example, as an example of a type of guy that I like a little bit better than that. Now, there's a ton of there's a million other names, and these guys could come out. Watch Sonny Dykes be a candidate. You know what I mean? Texas guy, Power 5 experience, got to the national championship game. You know what I mean? There's guys that are like that we're not talking about that are going to be a part of a search that are going to come up on an AD's desk, and their names are never going to get mentioned because the guy who gets hired is almost never the name that gets mentioned in the press. Just so you know.
Oh, yeah. That's why I think it's stupid, and we went 33 minutes just naming names.
No, but to me, it's not about names. It's about strategy. It's about what's the type of person you should go get. And again, I think the Jon Sumrall, Kane Wommack is the type of person I would, if I'm Mississippi State, I'm focused on two types of guys. It's the Jon Sumrall, Kane Wommack type, the rising star at the G5 level. And then it's the Power 5 retread who I know is pretty good. Gus Malzahn, Dan Mullen, etc. Those are the two types of names.
Why can't that be the option at A&M? Not the retread, but the first one.
It may be more risk involved. Maybe A&M's appetite's not there for a guy who's got to learn on the job. I mean, finding the right guy is really hard to do. It's very, very difficult to find that rising star. I mean, how many Butch Joneses and Jeremy Pruitts did Tennessee have to go through before they found Josh Heupel? You know? So,
yeah.
You like rainbows? That makes you gay?
I didn't realize I had two rainbows, and one of them says Dick.
It does say Dick House.
That's a fair question, given the attire. I only have 4.
I mean, is it I mean, you don't have to tell anybody if you like what you like in the bedroom there, big guy.
I only have 4 shirts and 1 sweater. So
I'm a big fan of the slow mesh in the bedroom. That's all I'm going to say.
So people
give me that slow mesh.
People they're questioning, why you guys wear the same shirts? You know, because we only got 4 of them here. You know what I mean?
That's the only shirts they have in East Tennessee in the mountains. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Yeah, I support you as well. Tim Dodge, good to hear from you. Tim, by the way, big Auburn fan, Auburn bowl eligible, even with what's his face. Okay, let's celebrate some guys here. I want to celebrate two players. I want to talk Heisman real fast, and that is Jayden Daniels with the two guys that had record-breaking performances over the weekend. Jayden Daniels, first player ever in college football history, 350 passing yards, 200 yards rushing. There are some important numbers to remember because I think the conversation is, and this is an actual Heisman question I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because plenty of guys have won it with 2 or 3 losses that didn't win their conference championship. It happened last year. For those that don't remember, Caleb Williams did not win the Pac-12. 2 losses in the regular season. They ended up losing again in the bowl, but that's after the award. The last guy to do it before then, didn't win their conference championship or play in the playoff, was Lamar Jackson in 2016, 3 losses in the regular season. Johnny Manziel had 2 losses in the regular season in 2012, didn't win their division. RG3, 3 losses in 2011 for Baylor. And their numbers are actually pretty similar. Like, 1,400 yards rushing for Manziel, 1,500 yards rushing for Lamar, 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions for Lamar, that stuff like that. RG3 was absurd, 37 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, which is kind of where Jayden Daniels is right now. And then Tebow, 3 losses for Florida in 2007. So it's only happened 5 times in the last 20 years. Here's my question. Is it okay if a voter says, in the 3 most important games of the season, LSU's offense was shut down in the second half against LSU or against Florida State, that Alabama knocked him out? It's not his fault that it was a dirty hit, but knocked him out, and they didn't win that game. And then Ole Miss, I guess Jayden Daniels can't play defense for LSU. But like, the point is that it's not part of the reason Robert Griffin won the Heisman is that they beat Texas that year. In 2011, a team that played the national title 2 years earlier. Lamar Jackson had huge wins that season. Is that a better argument than, he just has 3 losses?
Aren't you
why he
king of context? No wonder you were throwing so much context my way, Braden, because you are a smart man that goes a step beyond. But yeah, I mean, anyone that says that's just an idiot that thinks you lose 3 games, you're out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, I could buy into the argument, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but kind of like you were saying, RG3 beat Texas. I think the year that Mark Ingram won it, I think they gave it to him because they beat Florida in the SEC. Yeah, like sometimes that happens. We're like,
it's rare. It's rare, but it happens.
Big game, big moment, and I don't know that Jayden Daniels is going to get that against certainly not against A&M. You know what I mean? So maybe everyone's watching against Georgia State. Maybe the country is watching, the world. Maybe that was Friday or Saturday night against Florida. But again, I don't know how many people will remember that when they cast their ballot. But
so that's the question ultimately, because the numbers are absurd.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the numbers are as good as Lamar, Johnny Manziel, RG3, Caleb Williams, Tim Tebow. 72% completion percentage, leading the country in total offense, 3,100 yards, 30 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, 918 yards rushing, and 8 touchdowns. He's going to be over 1,000 yards rushing pretty easily. The numbers will be comparable to any other player in that situation. The question is, can you, when you break records, are you just so good, even that it's against an average Florida team at home, that can be your Heisman moment? I don't. Maybe it can. I'm a voter right now. I'm a voter. He would not be number 1 on my list, but man, he is close. He's right now I have 3 guys that are basically tied for first, and I can't decide who would be number 1. And he's one of them.
Joe Milton is the other?
Yeah, no, it's Nico actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I can get on board with that.
I'm gonna vote for him twice. It's gonna be Nico 1, Nico 2.
I mean, is he? I don't know. Is he the most outstanding player? Is he the player that you take him off the team and they're devastated? I think that's fair. I mean, I think he's the Heisman winner, but personally,
unfortunately,
I'm not predicting it because I don't think he will be. But I don't think he will. I think he should be.
I think it's a fair argument. I think he deserves to be in the right now. I think it's Bo Nix, Michael Penix, and Marvin Harrison. I think on a voting standpoint or a odds standpoint. But I think Daniels right now, he's like barely one of the finalists, which I think is stupid. I think he's been when you say outstanding, you can define it however you want. They actually give us as voters a lot of freedom to sort of decide how we want to define it. They don't tell you they don't give you any instruction. And I think if you watch Jayden Daniels, it's hard to argue he's not been anything but one of the most outstanding players in college football. Brock Bowers, I think, is the best football player in America. The problem is that Georgia went undefeated without him.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
And the numbers, maybe they're not there. Maybe they destroy Georgia this week and he goes crazy, or they destroy Tennessee this week, Georgia Tech and Alabama. And if they destroy Alabama and he's carrying them, he's going to win a lot of votes. I think he deserves a lot of votes because I think he's the best player in college football. But it's hard to argue most outstanding is not Jayden Daniels. Also extremely outstanding, Cody Schrader. First SEC player ever with 200 yards rushing, 100 yards receiving. And look, I think the very first comment on this show was, did Missouri and Tennessee play their – like Missouri – here's what's crazy about the Missouri-Tennessee game, Mike. Missouri didn't even play its best game. Like, kicked field goals, turnover in the end zone, didn't even play a perfect game. Didn't even have to play their best game. They're just a better team. And while I don't think that's an indictment of Josh Heupel, I think this is exactly where Tennessee was going to end up being. That kind of loss is bad. That's a bad loss. But Schrader, what a great story. He embodies everything that makes college football great. D2, walk on, leading the SEC in rushing, and a tough motherfucker. No one should want to tackle that dude ever.
Like Drake says, it's a game of chicken, and he ain't no chicken. So I thought that was, and Tennessee defense certainly was.
Couldn't tackle
this weekend. They didn't want any part of that.
They didn't want any part of Brady Cook either.
Yeah, he was running wild. Yeah, that was awful. That was just awful. And there's been too many games like that for Tennessee this year.
Just the two.
Steven kind of talked me off the ledge, but I'm about done with Heupel after that performance.
Oh, stop it.
Florida
Stop being such a drama queen.
Florida was awful. Missouri was awful.
Kyle's correct. Tennessee got pushed around on both lines of scrimmage. That's because Missouri's the better football team. One of us said that last week on the show. Here's the issue with Tennessee. If a rebuilding year for Tennessee is now 8-4, it's a pretty damn good place to be in. And I think that is the perspective. Yeah. That is the big picture perspective, because 8-4 was something that Jeremy Pruitt would murder a human being for. There are coaches, 3 of them are going to be fired right now. One of which is, Arkansas would kill for 8-4 right now.
Here's the real question: will Billy Napier ever get to 8-4 at Florida?
Who knows? Quit changing the subject. Tennessee.
No, I think that's a real question. I don't think he does.
I think it's a real question, but we're not in the middle of that conversation right now.
I am.
I think if 8-4 after putting a top 10 NFL lineman into the draft and losing 2 NFL receivers and the greatest quarterback statistically season wise in the history of your organization, for you to rebuild and still be 8-4, I think is a pretty good sign for the direction of your program. That's what I would say.
You just gotta show up in some of these second halves, so that'd be nice, wouldn't
it? I think, and you've joked about this all season. I think Nico versus Vanderbilt is absolutely something that should happen. Not the first series. Not the first series.
And against Clemson in the bowl game, because we know how you love
Orange Bowl Nico.
No, this year it'll be the Gator Bowl or whatever the hell it is, but
the Gasparilla Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Who gives a shit about those stupid ass bowl games?
I do. I care.
Oh, I watch them. I just don't. I think they're people put too much meaning on them. Exactly. Breaking parallels is exactly right. Joe Milton is a placeholder in the meantime, so Tennessee can put some weight on that stick figure.
What if Nico beats Georgia? I mean, can we crown the guy?
He's not going to be on the field, but that's fine. I'm saying alternate series against Vanderbilt. I am fine with that. Be prepared for next season. Take your loss against Georgia, or see what you can do. Maybe you can run the ball. You're in a good spot if you're Tennessee. No one thinks you can do anything. Georgia certainly doesn't think you can do anything. I don't
understand how last year can be compared to COVID year.
Huh?
What? This guy's saying Heupel, that's the best he can do. Jimbo
last year was the best Heupel can deliver. No, I think but I don't think his point is wrong. I do think I think 11-2 and beating Bama might be his best possibility. That might be as good as he can do. I don't think that's an unfair statement. I just think Tennessee fans would be okay with 11-2 for a while.
Yeah.
Until eventually until eventually you turn into Mark Richt, but it takes like 10 years to do that.
I think you could argue they were the second best team in the country last year before Hendon Hooker got hurt.
Before, yeah. I don't know if they were better than Michigan, but they were better than Alabama. We'll see.
I guess you didn't hear Michigan was scouting them.
That's the only reason anything's ever happened for Michigan. So Cody Schrader, Missouri, hell of a season, just 1 year too early. Ole Miss too. I mean, absolutely put in their place by Georgia, but like just 1 year too early. Missouri is a playoff team. Missouri is absolutely one of the 12 best teams in America.
Yeah, definitely. And man, it's kind of depressing. You wanted to go down this depressing rabbit hole, but if it was next year, they'd be in the playoff.
Yes, they would.
But that doesn't mean they can't get there next year.
Well,
it'll be tough.
Well, but Burden's a sophomore, right? So Burden's back.
Yes, sir.
Cook's probably coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as your boy Eli doesn't take the Michigan job,
yep,
they're gonna have all those young recruits are gonna be 1 year older. There's no reason for Missouri not to be pretty damn good next year. Although I don't think Schrader has any more eligibility. I think he's played like 11 seasons, so I think he's out. You want to talk Georgia and Bama? Yeah, there you go. Kyle said it. Cook, Weiss, Burden, Cooper, all back. Yeah, they're going to be very good, Missouri, next year. So
yeah,
some of us thought that about this team this year.
Yeah, Cousin Shane, way to go.
Some of us. Cousin Shane, he was I will say, Cousin Shane's the only one who went as far as 10 wins. I will say that. Well, he and I were both very high on Missouri. He definitely gets more credit than I do.
He actually
he
said
had
11.
him at like 10 and 2.
he said 11, and then he backed it off at the last, and he was like, "Nah, just 10, just 10."
Because he's soft and accurate.
And we have two YouTubers. They've gone radio silent, but they vowed if Mizzou goes 10 and 2, they would get face tattoos of us.
No.
I swear to God, I have.
But they're not Missouri. They're not Missouri fans, right?
One of them was. One's a Mississippi State fan, and he's like he's deleting everything. I've screenshotted all. It's there, but the other one is a Mizzou guy, so I hope he follows through.
If you had to get a tattoo, would you rather have Cousin Shane or SEC Mike on your face?
Shane for sure. Shane. I do not recommend getting a tattoo of me.
Oh man. Anyway, Missouri deserve all the credit in the world, man. They're fantastic, man. They're so good. They're just a complete football. We said this going into the Georgia game, coming out of the Georgia game, going into the Tennessee game. They are a complete football team. You right there, big guy?
Burning up. Sweater was a wrong choice.
There's too many rainbows. Milk was the
perfect
bad choice. Georgia and Alabama clinched their spot in the SEC championship game. They played in 2012, and I think that is the game that this is going to be the most like. I think it's going to be like 2012. If you remember, Aaron Murray throws a pass 5 yards short of the goal line. They get stopped, but the winner of that game was going to win the national championship. Alabama went on to destroy Notre Dame. I'm pretty sure Georgia, you would agree, Mike, right, that Georgia would have gone on to beat Notre Dame in the national championship game, that 2012 Georgia team.
Oh, yeah.
They've also played twice with Kirby and Nick, and Nick has won both of those in the SEC championship game. Obviously, they're 1-1 against each other in the national championship game, so that's what matters. 2017, and then of course 2 years ago. But this feels like a 2012 matchup to me. Both teams are a little bit more defensive oriented. Georgia has maybe the more pocket passing quarterback. Jalen Milroe has turned into an absolute star. But this feels like a 2012 game where I would not be surprised that the winner of that game goes on to win the national championship. I would not be surprised.
Yeah, they should just crown them. They should crown the winner that day, Braden.
Crown their ass.
Because, I mean, who's beating them? Cheating Michigan? Cheating Ohio State?
Ohio State hasn't shown a lot.
None of those weak Pac-12 teams. They ought to just have – it should just be Georgia, Bama, Missouri, and Tennessee. And that should be the playoff.
So right now I would pick Alabama to win the game. And if Alabama wins a close game and Georgia's if they both win out the rest of the way, I think they both get in. There's going to be losing in the Pac-12. I don't think any of those teams are good enough to beat it. Ohio State offensively has not shown enough to me, and if they lose to Michigan, their resume is not all as special as people think it is. Texas could be a problem. but I don't trust them. So I think there's a very real chance that if Alabama wins a close game against Georgia, that they both get in and that they both belong in. And if Alabama wins that game like they did with Bryce Young, and they have a combined one, if they both win out from here on out, which is likely,
what if Tennessee beats Georgia though?
Then they're out. I mean, that's duh.
Okay.
I mean, if you lose to Tennessee and
that's as
Alabama,
good as a championship to me, Braden, is ruining Georgia's title. That's
what you got left for. That's what you're holding on for.
That's what I'm living for right now.
You're not. You don't get up in the morning for the CarQuest Bowl. That's not what you do.
Just to ruin Georgia's dreams there. But no, I mean, even if they pulled off a miracle and Georgia won the SEC, would you put them in as a 12-1 Georgia?
There is no chance on this green earth that a one-loss SEC champion is being left out of the playoff. 0% chance. Doesn't matter what happens anywhere else. Doesn't matter how many undefeated teams there are. Doesn't matter. 12-1 Georgia, 12-1 Alabama, they're getting in.
Even if it's like two undefeateds and one Texas,
doesn't matter.
Is it one of them?
Doesn't matter.
You'd put in Bama over Texas?
Bama's better than Texas right now.
Didn't they play in Tuscaloosa?
The committee has told us.
What'd they tell you?
That's not what you didn't ask me.
I just asked you.
You asked me about Georgia first.
No, I'm saying Bama.
12-1 SEC champion Alabama is not getting left out of the playoff.
Over 12-1 Texas?
That's not going to
in Tuscaloosa?
Well, I would rank them ahead of them right now. I have ranked them ahead of them right now. But I think they're the better football team. Their teams change. They're different. Jalen Milroe was in his second start. Now, the committee has told us that head-to-head is only a tiebreaker. Because guess what? You are the function of your entire season, not one game. So if Texas wins out and Alabama wins out, that makes Texas's resume better and therefore gives Texas a better chance to get in. And I think they both get in. But my point is that the second place Big Ten team is out then. And then you have to have one team. You have to have Florida State, Texas, and a Pac-12 team win out the rest of the way. That's, I mean, like you have four teams that have to win all the way out. And there's no chance that Alabama gets left out if they're 12-1. Zero chance. If Georgia's 12-1, zero chance they're left out.
Damn. I didn't realize you were on Saban's payroll too. Next year you're gonna be like,
am I on Kirby Smart's payroll too? Like
they're the betting favorite. Remember you said that last year? I'm
just telling you what the reality is. There is no in no way, shape, or form is a one-loss SEC champion getting left out. It's never gonna happen. Never has happened.
I strongly disagree. But I don't know. I don't watch.
You want to put? You already owe me a bottle of whiskey, so let's go ahead and put. You want to? You think a one-loss SEC champion is left out of the playoff?
I think it's very possible. Yeah.
Andrew says Ohio State, Florida State, and Washington wins out. Who gets the 4th spot? I mean, Georgia right now at undefeated would be number 1 ahead of Ohio State and Florida State and Washington. Also, they never went out. I don't know why this is hard to understand. It never happens. It never happens.
Well, we're running out of time, right? Only three games for each.
Yeah, Washington has to play 2 tough games. Oregon has to play a couple of tough games. Ohio State has to play Michigan. Texas has to play a Big 12 championship game too. Like it's just everybody has to play tough games. Alabama has to play Chattanooga.
That's a tough one. They have to go on the road, Iron Bowl.
That's
Hugh Freeze heating up.
It's certainly that's absolutely a way that Alabama will get left out of the playoff. I agree.
If Hugh Freeze beats Alabama, how much of a pass does that give him when there's a scandal this offseason? You know what I mean? Like if they get embarrassed,
I follow you.
If they get embarrassed by Bama, any
can't have any
scandal, you're gone. You beat them. I'm just wondering what is the limit there. I think Hugh gets a long leash if he can beat Nick Saban.
You think Auburn cares about scandals? I don't know. I don't think that's a thing they care about.
When they lose, I think they care.
Oh, much like Tennessee found ways that Jeremy Pruitt was cheating. NCAA.
That wasn't a scandal. That was reality.
Here, NCAA. Look at all this evidence we found.
Tennessee did the right thing, Braden, and I will not listen to you besmirch them for bettering the game of college football.
Yeah. How dare those athletes get paid like they do now legally? Selective moral outrage. It's every single team in the conference, but definitely Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, Tennessee, but they fixed that now because they have a nice guy coach and a gangster for an AD, which is the right way to do it. You need a good quality CEO coach and a gangster athletic director. That's the way to do it, which is what Tennessee's got. Okay. South Carolina, Kentucky, and Florida, Missouri. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about Florida, Missouri. If Missouri plays its game and shows up, they whip that ass. How does Tennessee actually are they actually in a position to surprise some folks and play better than expected because of last week, or is the concern along both lines of scrimmage just too much and Georgia's clicking on all cylinders and Carson Beck is destroying people now?
I just hope they can keep it within 30. That would be my hope, and I'll be at the game.
Oh, so yeah,
I am
tickets a little bit cheaper this week than last week.
Yep. They're a little bit easier to come by this week than I've anticipated, so that'll be nice. But I would just like to not remember what was that one year. It was like 41-0, something like that. I'm just trying to. I just hope they avoid that.
Great comment by Tim, by the way. When Freeze he's an Auburn fan. He says, when Freeze got hired, my first take was, quote, at least when he's fired, we probably won't have to pay a buyout. That's exactly what it is. No, I think Tennessee actually, much like in the last couple of games for Georgia, I think they're going to play well in the first half. I think the crowd helps. And I just think Carson Beck just slings it all around. I mean, the Vols secondary is not particularly great. And the line of scrimmage got pushed around last week. So I don't know how they stop Georgia. That's my issue. I do think they can try to run the football in Georgia. And I think the most important thing here is that Alabama is watching real closely what Tennessee does running the football with Joe Milton, with those running backs, because Alabama has a similar setup there. And I think if Tennessee finds some ways to mess with the run fits for Georgia, which they've had some issues with this season at times, I think that's to keep an eye. I just don't see how Tennessee stops them at any point. Like, I don't think they get up. Like, I'm not sure Georgia punts, you know?
Yep. I mean, that sums it up well. I hope.
Okay.
One Georgia punt will be a victory.
Give me Kentucky, South Carolina. I think this is Kentucky's trying to hold on to what could be a good season. They could end up having an average season. South Carolina's desperate to get
average season. I can't wait when they lose this game and they lose to Louisville, and then some of their fans are like, by God, you were right. Maybe this guy is a C coach, because that's what he is. I mean, this is not me making it up. It's what the grade says he is. And
it's just Dave Bartu, one guy's grade, but yeah.
They're average. They're average as hell. And
if they beat South Carolina and Louisville, will you come on and say he's not?
C+, is what I'd say.
I'm not going to talk about Mark. You've wasted too much of my time about Mark Stoops. South Carolina, desperate. Kentucky, not nearly as desperate. Very easy, very low point spread, 2-point spread. South Carolina plus at home. Williams-Brice Stadium, nighttime, desperate to get to a bowl game. Questionable secondary for Kentucky. Spencer Rattler slinging it around. Coming off their best game. This does not set up well for Kentucky. This says South Carolina. This screams South Carolina. So
I don't think you can
put sunglasses on a
judge any team after they played Vanderbilt, though, and be like, that was their best team. Vanderbilt's quit. They've quit. South Carolina is two outstanding players, and one of them's banged up, but still producing. Yeah. And that's what they are. And most of the other roster is not good. So
Mario's pretty good.
He's coming on. All
right, Mario's a fun player to watch, man. He's a little Mack truck. So.
Yeah. I mean, he's trucking Vanderbilt. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
He couldn't truck Jacksonville State. He had
an 80-yard run against Tennessee.
Yep.
A couple long run against Texas A&M. Two pretty good run defenses. I think motivated and dedicated is correct. My concern would be at home, Spencer Rattler against the Kentucky secondary. Desperate football team to try to get to a bowl. That's a bad situation for Kentucky. I would take South Carolina on the money line, I think.
What isn't it a pick 'em? Or is it changed?
It was 2 points yesterday. It was 2 points this afternoon, but this morning. It could have changed. South Carolina plus the points. I do love these two coaches, though, that don't like each other. I like it when coaches don't like each other. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
Eli Drinkowitz got some revenge last week. For sure.
Yeah. I could tell you something off air is pretty funny.
Oh,
I
yeah?
don't want to share it here, but you're right.
I've got stuff.
Let's just say you are right. Confirmed.
Can confirm Eli Drinkowitz not happy with giving up 120 points in 2 games.
That is accurate.
So much so that he fired his defensive coordinator and went and hired a new one who apparently has done a very good job. Brad Baker, one of the better coordinators in the conference. So,
well, he was the coordinator last year when they got torched too.
Yes, but not the year before. So
Thank
you for I appreciate you correcting me. You're like my fucking 7-year-old daughter. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Anything else? Sam Pittman, Hugh Freeze. It's weak ass November in the SEC. So enjoy the Georgia game. Watch some other teams this week. There's some other teams that you want to walk. Oh, Blake, that's right. Sorry, Kyle. Brad Baker works for the soccer team here in Nashville. I apologize. You're right. It's Blake. I apologize. Thank you also, Kyle, like my 7-year-old daughter, correcting me when I'm wrong, which is totally fine. Okay. Anything else you got?
No, I'm burning up.
Why is your room so like red and yellow?
I don't know. That's pissing me off too. There's a lot going on over here. I've got to fix it. I thought I did fix it, and then it went back to doing it.
Okay.
It's hot as balls in here.
Well, pull hell off by the hinges, boys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. That SEC podcast. You can go to 440 Sports YouTube page. Please give us a subscription. That would really be appreciated. We got game previews up there for SEC games. I guess we'll have those 3 big ones this week. And then we do appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for hanging out. We'll talk to you guys next Tuesday. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. Have a good one.